Greetings, everybody. We're Thru Port Collective, and we're here with our live show for show number 5. I'm here with my friends Cryss Smith, Marshal Arnold, myself, Tim Grogan, and we're just very stoked to have created this new show where it's really got to focus on music. We have satellite information of all kinds, and sometimes we go off on tangents, but we generally don't stray too far from a topic that we pick for every show. And so we're just happy to have everybody here. I have to go to my YouTube right now. Hold on. Sorry. Yeah,
Pause.
there we go. So that's a thing. Okay, I'm
While you're
back.
doing
And I
that,
apologize. So here's what happens there. As I use Safari as a browser to be on the chat, when I pull that up first, then I pull up Google Chrome and I get on this, what we're on now. And so the problem for me is just that I can't mute Safari until the show starts. And I always forget every time. Then the show starts and then I can mute it. But it's like about, I don't know, it's a good,
I don't know if you know this, but there's on the chat on the main YouTube page, there's a menu that says pop out chat.
oh yeah, I got
Once
that
you
going.
pop that out, you can close the main YouTube window.
That is the part I didn't know. So see,
Mhm.
I'm even learning stuff from you guys, right? We're learning from each other. Yeah, because every time I do that, I'm like, I pop the chat out, but I don't close the main window.
Yeah, see, I used to
Thank
go
you,
in there.
Chris.
I would click on another video, turn the volume down so that when it started up, it wouldn't be playing sound. And I realized, oh, hey, I can just close this out.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that was more
Yeah.
the function of the pop out. So yeah, thank you. So everyone at home and here, that's
You're
what
welcome,
happens.
everyone.
Yes. Seriously though, so I'm sorry, I like that completely. Like, just it's so distracting because it's about a good, I don't know, 10 seconds behind. It's really odd.
Yeah,
Anyway,
if you're
so
trying to
back to
talk, yeah, if you're trying to talk, it totally messes you up.
yeah, that was weird. And since I was leading off, so well, you're welcome for that lead off. But nonetheless, here we are, and I'm glad to be here with my new friends. We're part of Team US for GeoSynth show, the synth show with Jamie Morden, and we have sprung off to do our own thing, and that is Thru Port Collective. And so we're just really happy to be doing this and seeing what we can do to further our own education, as we were just talking, and in all sorts of ways, and everyone else's who's interested in checking out the show. So thanks for being here and being interested in the various things that we're going to hit on, which between the three of us, we have a fair amount of knowledge. I was talking to Chris before the show about that we have areas of overlap for sure, but we also have little areas, that are completely unique to each one of us. So I feel like we can kind of field just about any topic, and pretty much somebody's going to have firsthand experience or some great insight into it. So cool, yeah. Today's topic will be about, well, it'll be about writer's block. And what happens when you get that? How do you get it? How do you get rid of it? How do you avoid getting it in the first place? Can you stay 6 feet away from someone else and not get it? How does this all work? And it's a main thing for all of us. I don't know anyone who, in any creative endeavor, quite frankly, who doesn't suffer from some level or moment of some kind of block of their creativity. So we thought this would be a cool topic to launch into. And one of the three of us is possibly in the midst of experiencing a certain level of it. And so that might be Marshall. So it might be might be cool to Marshall to go to you first and just maybe kind of talk about where you're at and how you got there and what your particular death and resurrection of inspiration may be.
Yeah, so I don't tend to suffer from this that often, which is what makes it really kind of frustrating. So normally if I'm stuck, I just kind of move on to other things, start something new, come back to something old later, but I tend to finish what I start. So if I start working on something, I tend to wrap it up within a week or so. I don't tend to let it sit and simmer and then come back to it later. I do sometimes, but it's super rare. And in this particular case, I've been struggling with this writer's block issue. And I think it's mostly driven just by stress in general with life these days and some things going on. But, normally music is a way that I kind of unwind and get out of that. But for whatever reason, I'm having a little hard time. But I've got some projects that are going, and the stuff I'm stuck on it's like 90% done, right? So it's pretty much done, but it just needs just that little extra to get it finished in my mind. Um, so I just need to sit down and get it done. I think is the best thing at this point. Otherwise, I don't think those tracks are going to get done. And yeah, it can be tough. It can be tough to get over this.
Yeah.
It's like being in the doldrums. You know what I mean? It's kind of don't. You pull up your track and you work on it. And you're like, I just don't like what I'm doing right now. You know?
Absolutely.
It's kind of one of those things where, I mean, if you have a flat tire, there's a process to go through to fix it, or whatever it is in life that you have to deal with. Like, oh, I got to fix this thing and get it working again. And writer's block is so like diffused and abstract and like just mushy to try to get a hold of. It's a really difficult thing.
It is. Yeah. Go ahead, Marshall.
Yeah. So it's different. Like certain types of like I almost feel like in other times when I've had this problem, it's been for different reasons. And in this particular case, this one's a little more difficult that I've had to deal with in a long time. So I don't know. It's just kind of weird how that works, though. Sometimes you get writer's block for a short amount of time. Other times it can last a little bit longer. I'm curious what you guys do to get over your writer's block.
I usually give up and go home. That's it. It's just like that's it. I'm never doing this again. I'll go play drums.
No, I mean, I think on the surface of it, I tend to be like when I played live a lot more, and I kind of did it for a living, and with that kind of stuff, there's a certain amount of stuff you just did every week. You just go and you get it done, and that's it. And there's not really anything to debate about it. At home, working on projects in my own music, that's where it seems to be a little bit weird. But I tend to be a little bit different, I guess, than like how you described, Marshall, that you start a project and you really see it through in that week or whatever and finish it up and then go on to the next one. And I find myself like starting a lot of smaller projects or ideas and putting them down, or starting a full song and going about 2/3 of the way and then being like just horribly sick of hearing it. And so I dump it, and then I come back to it in like 6 months and go, okay, well, what can I do with this? And I think maybe initially that it doesn't sound like a very good strategy, but in some instances it can help because if you're not feeling it, there's that thing of like, should I push through this and stick with it right now, or should I just dump it and come back to it later, which is going to be difficult down the road, but it may lead to some bigger progress. I don't know. That's generally where I've been.
I like what Paul says here. He says, buy shoes or a new synth. I don't know about the shoes part. The new synth part. Yeah, maybe that's what I need. I just need a new toy to get me all excited. That could be it.
Sometimes that's it. It really is. Sometimes that's it. You just need a different perspective. And if that brings it, that's fine. I mean, that's a real like kind of lavish way of getting
Right.
getting around writer's block. But I mean, it's, but this, by the same token, like the reverse is true. You can have a super huge creative inspiration output by getting a new instrument. So the reverse is sort of true. So obviously that's not. Yeah, I can't think of any ideas right now. I'm just going to go buy a new sense, but
Right.
it's but at the same time, like that is a partial solution, or maybe it's change your setup a little bit. Maybe think about it backwards, like try to start getting into some sort of problem solving mode about it, which is not normally how we want to create things, really, is it? Like we kind of want them to flow and just like, here we go. But when that flow stops, then right, what do you do? And you can either move to a different stream, an adjacent stream, like Cryss, you're saying, like work on a different piece of music, or you can sit there and problem solve. Why am I blocked? Like, what's happening here? Why is this so boring to me? Or whatever happens. Why do I just feel like the bottom dropped out?
Well, that might be a good place to go. Kind of a little a tangent for a moment here, at least, is like, what do you think causes it, or at least what does it cause? Again, people in the chat like chime in too. Like, for you guys, what do you think causes that feeling, that like kind of disconnect that puts you in writer's block?
That's a tough one because it's kind of an abstract thing, at least for me. It's usually not one thing that causes it. It's could be environmental, like in other words, like what's happening around me. It could be my mood. It could just be like I'm just not feeling what a lot of times what I do, and we've talked about this on previous shows, but when I create something, I usually make patches and things like that as I go. I don't usually pull from a set of assets that I've created. I mean, some stuff, yeah, but for the most part, when I make something new, I'm usually designing new stuff for that, what I'm making. And sometimes what I'm making, I'm just not happy with either. And that can kind of cause a problem. And other times it's more like, well, the composition, I'm just not liking the melodies. I'm feeling like this is kind of dragging, Sometimes, though, you feel like you did like the most cool thing, and then you go to sleep, and then you wake up and listen to it the next day, and you're like, oh, man, that's not really that good.
Yeah, that's so true. That is so true.
And that gets a little discouraging because then you're like, well, do I just start over, or what do I do here?
Yeah. Yeah, the light of the next day can really shed some interesting perspectives. Like, I don't even like what I did. And while you're doing it, you're thinking, wow, this might be something really, kind of cool. I feel good about this.
Yeah, it's going to give me my Grammy. Oh.
Now, always the thing to strive for, yeah. Well, if I could jump in there on it too about like how you get there, what causes it. I think a lot of times for me, it might have to do with repeating myself a little bit. And I'm always looking for ways to stay fresh and keep that inspirational pipeline open. And so when I don't, then I'm just getting hung up basically in something that's natural byproduct, I think, of trying to find my own sound and working on something that like, this is what I'm after. And if I'm after kind of that one thing for a long time, then I can start to have little hiccups and I can bump into blocks. And that's when it's like, well, maybe I just need to move everything to one side. And sometimes that's what can get you out of it. But I think definitely that's what can get you in it. And like Marshall was saying, definitely environmentally, there could be a million distractions. Maybe some days if it's not flowing, maybe you just say, I'm not writing today. Maybe you actually kind of surrender to that for a day. It's not my favorite. I know it's no one's favorite, but
you mean I have to go outside?
Yeah, go outside. Yes. Find a tree.
Yeah, man, there's people out there in the sun.
Yes, 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 and you might not want that either. No, but it could like bust your head out of it. Sometimes I just in a writing session, like in a regular type, just sort of lyrical songwriting session. For me, there's usually a point where I'm a little stuck on an idea, and I'll just get up and actually go to the bathroom. And as simple as that sounds, just by walking away, clearing my head, um, and then coming back, it's amazing, like what a reset button that is, though. It's like something
Yeah.
that's simple. And then some. Now all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, it's this. Like, and I have a line. I have the right line for the song or whatever.
Yeah, and David's saying in there, writer's block is more of a state of mind. If my mood is down, I'm just done. Or what does he say? Is that drum?
Drum. I just drum.
I just drum. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, go on the drums. Gotcha.
See, David and I have that little way to get around it. It's back to super primal, and you just like start, beating out a groove, and then you forget about the other problem of like the mechanics of it, right? What you're hung up in.
It's one of those things. It's like you got like when you're in the flow, like it's almost like being in the zone, like with sports. It's a lot of fun
Right.
in that spot, and so when you're struggling to get there, it's rough.
Well, that's a great analogy too. Like, it's like in the zone. What makes an athlete in the zone? How does that happen? How do they get out of the zone? It's kind of a mystery.
It's one of the kind of perplexing things for me. So, I mean, just been really crazy busy working on projects, a lot of music stuff, a lot of music work, and put in a lot of hours of it. And sometimes, when you get to that point and you have a little bit of time, the perplexing thing is like, which way does it go as far as that? Because like, what David was talking about, he just goes to the drums, because there are moments for sure where, I mean, there's nothing like, cranking an amp up and just like chugging at it for a while, and it like clears your head, or you're sitting down and like you're so desperate to get away from everything else that this becomes a sanctuary for you. And other times, like, this week for me, we were talking before the show, and said like, I think I might have a day off tomorrow. I might actually get to take some rest, and I feel like done. And as you're saying, Tim, like, it's this thing that you look forward to, and you want to do it. Like, a day off usually means for me, like, well, I get some stuff done around here, but then I get to sit and do what I want in front of the computer and with my instruments, and just make some music and have fun. And when you get to that place of like, oh my gosh, I want to, but I don't want to. And that is a really hard thing to sit with.
Yeah, that's so now we could get right to another core issue of being a creative, I suppose, which is inspiration is huge, right? But a lot of it is perspiration. So not to use the overly used comparison, but like, it's a discipline. So a lot of the times you just got to keep pushing through it until something happens. And that could be a long time, but if you force yourself to sit there and keep doing it, even it's sucking in the process, right? But then all of a sudden, eventually, bam, like it breaks and you go, wow, that took forever, but now I'm somewhere. So it is like a thing of a balance of like being open to the pipeline of inspiration and ideas, and then also knowing if that is not flowing, that you could at least kind of go to the grind and just like, I'm going to grind this out until something happens. And that's just like a discipline way of having to deal with it, because in the final analysis, while we're creatives and we're here to be, try to channel inspiration, we're also here to produce something, and we can't just flit around and go, oh, here comes inspiration, and it's like, oh boy, all right,
Out of the ether.
I'm so I'm so inspired now. So
So I was going to ask you guys, do you when you guys get stuck on stuff, do you, like, will you take what you're working on and kind of share it with somebody and ask, hey, like, what do you think?
That's a great
Get a
one.
little bit of feedback from other people. Do you guys ever do that?
Chris.
Mm, I probably should.
Well,
I think
I know some people are really, they don't really like to share, especially if something's not done.
yeah.
There are some folks who have a hard time kind of letting people hear early
I
works.
think I think with people that I trust, there's not a problem of it. I think the problem comes from there's just not enough of those people that really care enough to, you know, listen. And I mean, we've all had the experience of working on something really hard, and you're like you're maybe it's not complete yet, or maybe it is, and you're excited. And there's a lot of memes about this, right? That you go and you show your friends, and as soon as, like, it's like 20 seconds into the song, they're talking about something else and not
Right.
paying attention. You're like,
But like that's super instructive. Oh, and this brings up something I really want to hit on that I didn't even think of until right this second. That's super instructive, right? If you do play it for friends that you think might dig what you do or have in the past, and all of a sudden you've kind of lost them, then that's instructive to you
At
in
the
a
time.
way.
Yep.
And then but
mm,
dig this. Here's this is what I was thinking of. What How often has this happened to you? It happens to me like pretty regularly as I'm playing a piece of music for someone whose ears I trust and I think they kind of understand where I'm coming from with this piece of music. All of a sudden, I perceive my piece of music differently because someone else is listening.
Yes.
mm,
Do you guys have this? Because all of a sudden I'm
yeah.
listening with different ears because some other ears are in the room. It's a weird thing. Do you guys have that?
So, it's kind of like when I started doing this, I was not good at it at all. And I remember the friend of mine who introduced me to the style of music that I make. He listened to it all the time. I would consider him an expert on good style trance music, for example. And when I would play him my stuff, and it was kind of like what you're saying, like he would kind of listen to it and he'd tell me like a little bit about what he was hearing, and then I would kind of understand a little bit about what I was missing or what I was doing. That's not really a writer's block thing, but it's more like just I guess it could, like, if you're kind of stuck though and you're getting some feedback like that, it's like, oh, maybe I need to
Oh,
change this up, and that can kind of get the ball rolling again as well.
I think it can kind of help gauge some kind of interest, or if the song has a good hook. But also, I mean, just thinking about the psychology of people, the first time someone hears what's going to be a super popular song, it's usually nothing. And so, some of these big songs that come on the radio, for a little while, they don't really do anything, or people aren't really moved by them, or you don't like it, and all of a sudden, a week or two goes by and everybody's singing that song. And so it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to judge it that way. And a lot of times we don't have critical musicians as colleagues or friends to be able to help us with that. Because, I mean, I've shared stuff with other friends that are musicians, and but they're not songwriters. And so they listen to the guitar lick or whatever, and like, oh, that's cool. And then it's like off talking about something else. There's no thought to the whole creative process, or how we, as the people offering the song for dissection, would like some feedback on it. They don't really understand that process, even though they're musicians.
And that
right.
can be tough if you're not able to get constructive feedback. Um, there used to be some websites that I used to go to back in the day where you would post your stuff, and then you'd have to review other people's stuff to
Hmm.
get yours reviewed.
Yeah.
And I did find that helpful in certain ways, mostly on the production side of things. It was more like, oh, if you did a little bit of side chaining on this, or if your stereo fields, you don't have any, everything's kind of really in the center. Some of those techniques and stuff I learned through that process through having other people kind of critique. But like you said, I mean, you play it with your friends or family, and they may not even understand. They may think, oh, like it's something's not right about it, but they can't really articulate what it is either sometimes. So it is important to get feedback from people that kind of know how to do what you're kind of going for.
Totally. And even if they don't even give you a positive feedback, like we're saying, I think even just for me, what that reminded me of was when I do play my music for somebody else, I start hearing it in a different way, and it pushes me through the block a lot of times if I'm having that. If I'm kind of at that point, I'm like, it's not a finished song, I don't want to hear, well, what if you did this or what if you did that? But if I'm stuck, I want to hear that. Like, tell me, like, what if you did this? Or, what I think it sounds like? It sounds like, flock of seagulls or something. And you're like, what? I don't even know what you're talking about. But anything to kind of shake your head up for a second, right? So like purportedly Beethoven would take ice water, right, and pour it over his head while he was riding if he was having a hard time getting somewhere. So it's just like, that's sort of the ice water over the head, is to have a friend go, it sounds like something completely not what you're doing. It's one of my favorite things about creating music is playing it for somebody, and they'll say it sounds like something. I'm like, I was never in a million years thinking of that while I was making this piece of music.
But that's the cool thing about that's one of my favorite things about music is sometimes it can be really subjective. Like somebody who listens to it can think one thing and have a totally different experience with it than somebody else even.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The same piece of music.
Same piece of music, and even though when you had a whole different concept or thought process behind the whole thing, and it's just weird how sometimes the way people react isn't necessarily what you thought how you thought they'd react either.
Yeah, and even one person can have an arc of their relationship to a particular song. Because I mean, like I was saying before, like first time you hear something, I mean, there are a few tracks that I've heard that, like from the beginning, I was like, oh my gosh, this thing is incredible. This is it. But most of the time, it's not like that. But then it builds up into the point where like it begins to seep into your soul, and you're like, oh man, and you can't get enough of it. And there's that while where you just listen to this album or this song over and over and over. And then that sad part afterwards is like you've heard it so many times that you're kind of tired of it. And you're like, that thing that you love and that is objectively good then becomes something that's not so great after a while. So I think that, it does, how it meets a spectrum of people, but also even the same person over a spectrum of time. It's tough.
That's a great point, though. Yeah, and that's like, this really feeds into collaboration too, because I think mostly when you're experiencing writer's block, it has to do with you're on that desert island, and you're expecting you to, to get yourself off of it. And when you're collaborating, your collaborator just has to say, one thing like avocado or something, and you're like, oh right, And literally, like, it can be random like that, though, right? Whatever triggers your brain to move on, it's an odd thing how you get stuck. And I don't know that any of us could necessarily answer it for sure unless we were some sort of like neuroscientists.
So I am curious, though, Tim, when you get writer's block, do you ever go sit in that chair over there?
I do all the time. I do. That chair is awesome.
Sitting over there like smoking a pipe or something.
Like, what can I do about this melody?
It is that chair, isn't it?
Like, it's really not working.
It's very like it's Victorian or something. It totally doesn't fit the vibe of my room, which is
I think it looks cool in there. Yeah.
It's just
I think it fits. I think it looks cool.
It's very eclectic, that chair. Yeah, man, right?
Squeaky office chair. This is not the most.
Yeah, I got that too going on. Yeah, I guess I better fix that. But yeah, again, getting up, going and sitting in the chair. Maybe that's my writer's block chair. Maybe I should look at it like that. Put a sign on it even. Just go over there and stepping away or something, or
No one else sits in my writer's block chair.
Oh, so all right. So here's something else that like comes to mind. So like, what about when you're looking for ideas and you're just trying and trying and you're pressing and you're trying to find these ideas, right? Like that trying thing that you have to do. You have to give it a college shot. You have to have the discipline. You have to push through and try. And then you give up and you go and like take a shower. What is it about taking a shower that can really like open you back up to things? I've written so many like chorus ideas in the shower. Just all of a sudden I'm singing something. It's bizarre though. All right. Can we talk about that? Like,
yeah, because I think that makes sense because, in the shower, you're kind of relieving stress at the same time. Maybe that helps. Like your body just kind of relaxes, I think, when you're in the shower. So at least it does for me.
I'd very much agree with that. And then I'd also add that there's a bit of, in one way, sensory deprivation from the outside world. And then to have the sensory experience of the water and the heat and the steam and, that's not normal. So like the deprivation of the world and all of a sudden all this stuff from the shower, like it does tend to change your head a bit.
Yeah, and it's like, so if part of it's perspiration, right, or whatever, and that's the discipline of like just pushing through it anyway, and then part of it's just the inspiration part of remaining open to whatever that inspiration is. That's kind of when your brain is in neutral.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Like you're not distracted by anything, but you're not forcing it. It's just like it's just coming out. It's just flowing. It's falling down, and you're just like, wow, this is so cool. And it's like being in neutral. And then sometimes you just, I don't know what happens. Like this is the biggest question of people in the chat. What happens? But like all of a sudden you're not neutral anymore, and you're trying, and it's not coming, and you're trying to force it, and so then you have to deal with the other side of like trying to push through and get the discipline part happening. But what a fantastic exercise that is for us as humans and people who want to be expressive, to have to go back and forth between neutral, right, and then fucking, I'm sorry, but overdrive, like, and really super be in gear, right? Like, like, and have to like switch back and forth. Those things couldn't be more, dichotomous or whatever. Like, wow. So what a great exercise that is, I think, for us as humans and artists to understand that and try to find ways of flopping back and forth.
I will say, I agree with Paul. Shower or car? Car is something that I do. And I mean, like when I get in the car, if I'm working on something, I'm usually listening to it. Not only just if I'm stuck, but also because I'm listening on, it helps to listen on different systems and things like that to see how your stuff's sounding, just in terms of mixing and all that kind of stuff too. But I will do that sometimes. I'll just kind of cruise around. Maybe I need to go get a bite to eat. I'll load my track on my phone or whatever, Bluetooth it to the car, and kind of listen to it as I'm driving around. Sometimes that helps. Sometimes it helps to listen to other people's stuff too, to get past the block. Sometimes that helps. Sometimes even something completely different. Not even anything. It could be some old 80s ballad, or a rock song or something. And sometimes that kind of helps too. It's almost kind of the same thing though. It's like you're saying, you kind of go into neutral, and then it kind of clears you out.
Yeah, there definitely seems to be the pattern of like changing the game or disrupting the pattern that you're in already, like in our conversation. So it's like somebody mentioning something to you, avocado, or changing, taking a shower, taking a walk, taking a drive, that kind of thing. And that's a great one that you said, Marshall, about like if you're in that musical frame for too long, Like you can kind of get stifled by it, and you have to have some sort of other input, and that can be kind of a fun thing to kind of stretch your wings and check out some other music that's not what you normally listen to.
I still think we should all just go buy new synths every time.
Yeah.
There it is. Episode over. Done. See you guys. It's been
Writer's
great.
block, go buy new shit.
All right. Well, so let's talk about that for a moment. Let's
Oh,
talk
good,
about
good.
that for
Yes,
a
let's
moment.
do.
Okay.
Let's do.
Why does it work? Why is it that sometimes we can go and buy a brand new synthesizer or whatever it is, some plugins or a guitar or something, and all of a sudden you just find more songs? Like, especially, I don't know what it is about guitars and just what they are. Like, you pick up a different guitar and you're playing the same amp and the same pedals or whatever, and all of a sudden things come to you that you're like, the guitar is telling me something. I mean, it's not really the guitar telling you, but like you all of a sudden connect with it in a certain way that is just different, and then it opens the world to you again. Why does that happen? And does it happen to you? Does that kind of thing happen when you buy a new synth, or is that just something that's an excuse to get new gear?
No, it does though, because a new instrument. First of all, you're excited because you have something new, and second, although these instruments, the synthesizers, subtractive analog, they're all fairly similar. They all kind of do the same thing, but the interfaces are all different. The way they operate is different. The way it makes you sometimes think about how to use it can just be a treasure trove of ideas for some reason. And I think it's because it's new. And you're experimenting. You're like, oh wait, this can do this. Oh cool. Oh, this preset's awesome. I don't have this on anything.
Mm-hmm.
That is so true. And interacting with the sound is what you're doing. And it's inspiring you, and you hear it, and it pushes you to create a certain thing, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely can lead you that way, because especially if you're really familiar with the gear you have already, it can be very inspiring to get something new.
Yeah, I
Totally.
found also. So a strategy I do employ is, man, I don't have enough money for a new synthesizer every time I get writer's block. But one of the things I do is that because we're living in the 2020s and computers and plugins and stuff are so readily available, and they cost a lot less money in general than, say, hardware does, that one of my favorite things to do, and sometimes too, like, talking about like getting done with your day and music as an escape. Like, sometimes I come and I sit in here and I'm just too damn tired to do something, to work on something. And so I've kind of lost, because I've had to work, do music as work for so long that, I do feel like I've lost a little bit of that thing that I had, where I would just come home and I would just pick up the guitar and play for an hour, and then I'd be done. I'd be refreshed and all that kind of thing. And so for me lately, it's like I open up Logic. I got my little workstation here, and I go, okay, what am I going to do? And I've always got some sort of synth here, and can use it have it connected, so I use it as a controller. But I'll pop open my synthesizer plugin folder, in Logic, and starts looking through, like, what am I feeling like right now? And I've got a lot of synthesizers in there, and I've got synthesizers with enormous an enormous treasure trove of presets, either I've made or that have come with it. And sometimes it's like the ones that come with it, depending on what you get, sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. But I'll open it up and I'll just go, well, I'm not doing anything. I might as well like favorite some presets, something that might get me inspired later down the road, or when I'm in the work process, I need to get it done. I need to find something that's going to work. Oh, this synthesizer comes with 4,000 presets. here's the 50 of them that I like, and you can go to it quick. So I'll start it with that kind of mindset, like I'm not even having to do anything,
That's
and maybe
perfect.
that's a little bit of a trick also that we to play on myself, and that
Yeah.
like I'm not here to do anything.
Yeah.
I'm just playing presets, and you'll
Yeah.
start playing through, and you'll hit something, and this happened to me. Was it last night or yeah, last night? And man, I just beat, and I popped open a couple things, and I was just playing just to noodle around, and like all of a sudden it hit me, and I record this little couple bars of whatever 4 bars of stuff, and then I keep pulling up other stuff and just looping and going for it, and like all of a sudden I had this like little thing, this little like proto song going that I did not have the energy to do. I did not have the energy or the mindset to get that little thing going. And all of a sudden there's this little piece of music there that like now I can come back to it when I'm ready and like kind of finish it up. But
Yeah.
that's kind of one of those fun things of like, you pull open, not even spending any money, but pulling open your plugin folder and going, what can inspire me that maybe I haven't touched in a while?
Yeah, and to kind of draw off that, even kind of like what Paul and Wagyu are saying, if you got some old gear laying around that you haven't touched in a while, sometimes pulling that old thing out and using it again can be very helpful. I do kind of agree with him as well. I don't usually get the new gear excitement with plugins. I'm kind of the same way. Like the plugins are cool, but I don't get as jazzed about those as I do a hardware synth.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, but the same thing can apply if you have a certain amount of gear. If you have a certain amount of hardware, the same principle can apply. So I've got, I don't know, about 15 guitars, or I don't know, somewhere abouts there. More than I can have out. So I have some in the closet, and they're put away in cases, and it's too much of a pain to get it out, to be honest. So what I typically
I know that is. Like I
stuff
got that 8800 out of the case. I don't feel like bringing that thing out.
yeah.
Use the plug-in now.
But the brilliant thing is that like if you have that thing sitting in a closet for 10 months and you've almost forgotten that you owned it, and you go, I need something new, I'll go and I'll dig a guitar out of the closet that I haven't played in a long time, put something that I have been using a lot into the closet, pull that one out, change the strings, and all of a sudden it's that same feeling of like that, oh, this is something that's new and I haven't spent any money. Now, obviously, like with that, it presumes that you have enough gear that you can do that. I mean, for guitars, I've got enough that I can do that now, but for some other instruments, I don't.
Yeah. That's so interesting. It's
I just want to.
Yeah. No,
Sorry.
say it, Marshall. Go ahead.
I just want to know what Paul is doing with his plugins, because apparently he does stuff,
Oh,
and we don't do the same things.
well.
Teach us, Paul. Teach us. Sorry, I didn't mean to derail you. I just thought that was funny.
No, that is funny. And yeah, well, a lot of our chatties are extremely witty and knowledgeable. I really appreciate you guys being here and chiming in, because you guys do have a lot of great knowledge. And again, part of this show is, the reason it's called, Thru Port Collective is so that, we're talking about things that come to us and that we can push on through to other people. And, you guys are doing the same thing, as well as just there's some fantastic humor that happens. But a lot of great knowledge. I mean, yeah, I appreciate it so much, right? That, these guys are here and everybody's like checking it out and talking about stuff, but like there's a lot of humor. I'm happy for all of that. I need humor. That's such a part of my life that helps me get out of writer's block sometimes, is to stop taking myself so seriously and just like go, that's hilarious what I just did. Like that's like awful. even, and you're just like, that's laughably awful. But at least you can pull away from it, right, and get yourself out of it for
Yeah.
a second and stop taking it so seriously, and just kind of go, well, then there it is again. There is that moment where you kind of step back or put it in neutral or do whatever that it is that you do.
Well, that's something else too, because I think like if I think about my commitment or seriousness in music, and it's like the things that I really love and the music that I really want to pursue, I get very serious about. I don't like post very, very little of that goes to YouTube or other places because I'm so damn serious about it. And that's one of the things that can be kind of wrecking, in that
Yeah.
you take it, you hold it too tightly. And so one of my strategies has been is like when you get that place where you're not doing anything because you're overworking it or you're spending too much time on it, is to go to something that is a genre of music which you don't have any of those really deep feelings for. That maybe it's something that's new or just like, kind of shits and giggles kind of thing, where I really enjoy doing that, because like when I sit and I go, well, I'm going to make something in this style, like I don't care if it's super good or not, because I'm not really invested in that style too much.
Yeah.
It's going to interest me, but it's not the thing that's going to make or break me.
Cryss, I think the thing you're saying there, and also that sort of correlates to me directly to what you said earlier about sort of fooling yourself in a way, like, and you're doing it even.
Yeah,
It's this game that you figured out that if you just go, no, I'm not going to write anything right now. I'm just going to go through a bunch of sounds and like categorize them, and and then all of a sudden something hits you, and you have a proto song, like you said. So it's amazing. It's like what a game!
You did it again.
You old you. I know you. It's true though. Like that's the kind of whatever, like, out there world it is to be a creative like that, and to even know that you're like willfully putting yourself into neutral. It's almost like a spiritual thing. I mean, I don't want to get heavy, and I'm not, but like, it's almost like a mantra or something that pulls you away from, where you can't get off of one thing, and then you can find a way to meditate or do a mantra or whatever, right? And then now you're open again. I know that sounds like a little hippy-dippy, but it's true, right?
Find our power animals.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, okay, I left myself wide open on that one.
Sorry.
No, you're.
I know
it's
you're
hilarious. I don't take it seriously. I just it is interesting, and it is a phenomenon. That's all.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, I think the knowing that you're tricking yourself is also part of that process of releasing the seriousness of it and going, I'm going to do this, and okay, I know I'm tricking myself a little bit here. I might not be. I might just totally fail and just organize some presets or something, but it is that thing of like you recognizing like you're being a dumbass, and you're getting really serious about this, and it does kind of break the tension with you, and you're doing it. And that's the thing. I think that's one of the things that like you got to be okay with psychologically, going, I have to trick myself at this. And to be honest, in life in general, that's not just a music thing. That's a thing in general, that we know that people are different, and that people have different hang-ups and different things that they're good at. And that's part of the deal. Like, I know, like I have a very small little tolerance for a lot of people chaos. And if I know, if I spent all these years like where I wouldn't really interact on the internet a lot, and then, whatever, 4 years ago or something, I was like, okay, well, I probably need to do something about this, because I'm missing out on things, because and so I had to say to myself, like, okay, you got to do this, and you got to make some connections and that kind of thing. And that's like, you realizing where you have it's just natural. It's biological. It's genetic. I have these kind of things that are holding me back. So I'm gonna have to do whatever I have to do to trick myself to get into that arena which I don't exist normally.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting how some of these techniques can filter into just general life, like you said, because we all kind of run into stuff just in general, and it's like sometimes you just get in the dumps, and sometimes you don't know what to do with yourself. And I say you just should go sit in Tim's chair.
Hold on, I'll get my pipe. Here you are. Here you are. Enjoy. Kick back. I have a copy of the New York Times, an actual newspaper copy.
An actual, what's that?
Yeah. I don't know. It's from 30 years ago.
It's from the 80s.
Yeah.
That'd be cool, actually. Read this 80s copy of the New York Times.
I do have like a 1960s
Savings and loans crisis. That was in the 80s, right?
Oh my god. I do keep all sorts of little strange things around here. So this very much applies to writer's block or not. If I could, okay, I'm gonna go there. All right, here we go. So
let's see.
okay, so what this is it's a ceramic smoking baby. Okay, it has
How very Van Halen of you.
You can actually light this little cigarette here. It comes out. It's actually way long, but and it'll slowly burn down. One day I was sitting here and I was writing for my record Heartfelt Absurdities, and I was kind of just goofing around with this groove. It was a little odd, but I was like, what's the lyric? What's the lyric I want to write? And then I thought about, I looked at that smoking baby. It was around Christmas time. I had set up a little train set. You guys are going to think I'm half nuts, and maybe I am. But I had set up a little train set in here, and I was watching that go around, and I was looking at the smoking baby, and I started thinking, what it in a relationship, I won't even think about you, I'm denying you to me right now in a love relationship because I want to be over you kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So I started thinking about I'll think about you when pigs fly, that kind of thing. Sure, because I'm not going to think about you, basically, right? And then I was looking at that smoking baby in the train set, and I was like, wait a minute. I won't dream of you until a smoking baby rides an alien train. And so I literally was just looking around the room at stuff that inspired me, and it broke my writer's block. I couldn't think of what to do. And then, so I had this little alien figure also. I strapped it to the front of the alien train, to the engine, and let it go around. And in one of the cars, I put the smoking baby, lit it, and took some video. Right. And then all of a sudden I had this song. It's I won't dream of you. Trust me, I won't, until the weirdest thing ever happens, like a smoking baby rides an alien train. And so while that might seem crazy, it's just things that you have around you that can help bust you out of your brain for a second. Right.
Yeah. No, I like that. I don't have a train. I don't have a smoking baby. What do I have? I don't have any. I don't know what I would do. I have this Meeseeks here. This is my little reminder that sometimes you go a little crazy trying to get your way. This little guy.
Good.
I just have him hanging here on this on my little microphone stand here.
There's something to this, right?
Yeah.
Cryss, do you have anything in your room like that kind of pulled you out of mind? You have art? You have something like a tapestry behind you?
Trying to think. Nothing out. Just a funny, a funny story, interesting story, maybe a little bit sad too. But so how many years ago? About 8 years ago, I almost died and was in the hospital for a long time. And somebody brought me a stuffed little Chewbacca Wookiee, And I mean, it's like this big. It's in the closet, I think, right now. And so I had that thing sitting around. I was like, just little Chewbacca from Star Wars. And I was just, and then some years later, I was doing like a lot of Moog One videos for a while. And so one night I was like, I'm just gonna show off some sounds or something. So I set up Chewbacca next to the Moog One, and I put my camera over facing basically him, and you could see a little bit of the Moog One behind there. I did the video, and then put it out, and then like 2 days later, they announced that Peter Mayhew had died, who the guy that played Chewbacca on the day that I put that video out. I was like,
wow.
oh, that's kind of crazy.
That's some synchronicity there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I put Chewbacca in the closet because I don't want to make Solo jealous, but I suppose Solo would be, if people don't know, I have a little multi-poo Sola. She's about 6.5 pounds or so. And so she's usually in here. I've got this like little area of like shaggy carpet set for her down over here. And I've got a little doggy bed there. So she's usually hanging out here when I'm working. And so that's usually like a bit of a distraction from time to time, that if I'm too deep into it, she'll come up and want up or want my attention. And that can be a kind of a nice little break when you forget to take a break.
Yeah.
Totally. I mean, pets, right? There you go. There's another thing that can break writer's block. Just go and like lower your blood pressure for a second and, pet your cat or your dog or something, right? I mean, that's one of the reasons we have them, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to get a dog and name it Writer's Block or something. Just Block. What's up, Block?
I was thinking earlier though that and it's get one of those voodoo dolls and just start sticking needles in it until you get over your writer's block.
I mean, there you go. Whatever it takes, really.
Yeah.
Whatever it takes.
Somebody's having a worse day than me. I don't know who.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, so I just shared one of my more, I suppose, interesting stories about getting out of writer's block. Marshall, what have you done that's been successful?
Nothing as cool as that. I can tell you that.
Well, it's not weird.
I mean, no. I think it's cool. Whatever it takes. Sometimes, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, I will go and watch a bunch of Star Trek sometimes, and it just puts me in a good mood, and then I'll go back, and sometimes that works. I know that's not as cool as a alien trained baby thing. But, little bit of Captain Kirk, a little bit of whatever,
Yeah.
Captain Picard. Yeah. Enterprise flying around. Riker hitting on all the chicks. Alien ladies. It's all good, man.
That is good. And
Yeah.
that works, right? Because again, it's made you relax about what you're thinking about and redirected your focus.
Yeah. And sometimes it's really inspiring to sit there and listen, or not just listen. I mean, film and television is kind of the ultimate, and games too, I guess, in art to me, because it's a completed work, and you have not only the music, but you have all the sound design that goes into those projects, like Foley and all this stuff. Then you've got all the picture part of it. Then you got the visual effects that go into that, and all these different things that come together to create this show or this movie. And sometimes that's incredibly inspiring too, to see. There's like probably a few hundred people at least that worked on this. You know what I mean? To make this is cool. Like I need, and sometimes it'll make me want to go in here and start working on stuff.
Yeah.
Same thing with like watching like music videos. Same kind of thing.
The thing that I have found really inspirational about sci-fi, and I think why think there's a reason, like people that don't watch it or don't like it don't understand it because they're focusing very much on the surface level of things, and they're not really seeing the thematic nature of the work, or even something that's like, Tolkien or something that's like, oh, that's wizards. Oh yeah, whatever. But like if you watch something with, and you see the mindset of the great stories that are being told, or Star Trek was famous for its social commentary, but a lot of these great stories have had the hero's journey built into it. Like if you're familiar with Joseph Campbell and that kind of idea, where he kind of recognized this theme in a lot of human literature of people being confronted by something that's happened and they're pulled out of the normal world. They have a mentor, they have friends that help them. They go to the pits to battle the monster, and they make it out with the thing that they're supposed to save, and they return home changed in a different person. And it's it's Luke Skywalker in Star Wars. It's the dude in The Hobbit, and all these great movies kind of had that theme. And I appreciate, like with science fiction in particular, in that it takes you out of your normal world to look at the world. And I think that's something that's kind of it helps the music creation process, because it's tough living life. It's really tough, and there's things that get you down every week. And when you spend those moments like kind of absorbed and wrapped up in something else and somebody else's journey, it kind of frees you up a bit. And so that
also,
way, like,
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh no, I think that yeah.
I was going to say, it kind of puts it in perspective too, because Luke got his hand chopped off by his dad, who is the Lord of the Sith, and his sister he kissed. So I mean, it could be worse. Things could be worse.
Yeah. The I don't know what to say. I'm speechless. No, like Chris, Chris, so that like seeing the world through a different prism, like, or perspective,
Yeah.
it kind of gives you permission to view the world differently, and it gets you out of your head, and
Yeah.
it puts you into the head of the author or the creator of this particular perspective that you're now sort of passively involved in. And that's kind of, well, ultimately, that's sort of what we try to do as music creators. So just jumping to the end game of what happens when you get writer's block or when you are successful in pushing through it. I mean, that's what we're trying to do, is like offer people a different perspective,
I was curious, so Chris, have you done anything wacky like the alien train baby thing? Get over from writer's block?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. So, I mean, talking about lyrics, that's a whole nother ball game there. And again, that's something where I've kind of looked at inspiration in different things of, when it's not coming to me, to spend some time in whatever type of media it is, movies or books or even art or something, to where you find some inspiration, a beautiful landscape or something like that can kind of put you in a different place. I'm trying to think like something that's really oddball like that. I think for me, like, where the more odd stuff has come in, like deciding to do musically odd things, I guess. Not as much lyrically, but in and again, like what we talked about a little bit earlier, like if I'm feeling a little stuck, again, the trick myself, like, well, it'd be really great if I tried to tackle that genre a little bit, to take a little bit out of that, and I learned that playing live, and sitting in with different bands and stuff that like, to be versatile. And that's something that's kind of, I think maybe not as prevalent in the synth world, is to be versatile. Like people get in their little niches of whatever it is, ambient, modular music, or 80s synth wave, synth pop type stuff, or whatever it is. It's like you get into your little area, and so to kind of bust out of that, sometimes it takes something that's a little bit more absurd or unusual. And one of the things I did was I have this little I don't know, about like that little Farfisa micro organ, and so you plug it in, and it has a motor that pushes wind through reeds, and they open up when you press the keys, and it's in this little suitcase that flips open. Well, I've had it for like, I don't know, 30 or 35 years, 30 years probably, and mostly it just sat out in the garage. And I don't know, a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago or something, I said I need to do something with that, and I was at a moment where I was just a little bit stuck, and so this is a ridiculous instrument. What can I do with it? And so I started, that became the challenge to me. Like, okay, if I'm not going to do anything else, let me do something with this and see what I can glean from it. And also just to have something that, where I said for many years, like, oh, someday I'm going to do something with that, and it's, well, how do I fit that into modern music or the music that I make? I don't know. So I sat around and I played with it, and I was like, okay, what am I going to do here? I kind of began to have some sort of idea. And so I came up with some chords. I opened the case, and I used my 414 and mic'd it, and I started tapping on different places of the case to figure out what tones there were. So, part of it was a little bit deeper, I think on the back of the lid or something. So that became like a kick, and there was part of the top that was plastic that I slapped for a snare, and the little music stand was a bit rattly too, so that worked. And then, it's like started making instruments out of this little micro organ. Then I played the micro organ parts and a micro organ lead through some Valhalla delay or something, and I added lap steel with it and some guitars and bass, and I had a little song that was really kind of ridiculous and absurd, but it was something that kind of got me out of it just took me into a different area. Like, oh, well, that was kind of unusual and interesting to do. And there's been a lot of projects that are just like born of, I've never done that, so maybe I should try that. And one that I've shared before was talking with Dominic Hawken one day after a show, and he's a brilliant musician, and his show is fun and silly and the quiz and stuff, but you don't get a sense of how talented the guy is. And so he was telling me about dub reggae and or dub music, and that's just like, it's like a kind of a remixed form of reggae with lots of spring reverb and tape delay and filters. Yes. And it's like, it's like, I like reverb. I like reggae for about 10 minutes and then I'm done. And he sent me some stuff on YouTube, and it's like, oh my gosh, I love this. This is really cool. But it's not something that I'm going to do all the time. And so that became a challenge that of kind of, to me, absurdity, because that's not my world at all. And so I thought, can I cop that style well enough that I can do, can I make it convincing enough? And so I put that into a song and tried to look at each of the instruments from that particular perspective that's different than mine. How am I going to play bass like a reggae bassist? How am I going to play guitar like a reggae guitarist, although a little more tripped out maybe? And how am I going to, create the sound field that sounds like this old dub music? And that became the challenge then. And so I didn't know what I was going to do or how it was going to work out, but it just kind of started as a thing, and it got going, and I just, finished this little piece up, and it was fun. And then to look back on it, go, wow, that was really interesting. And there's some few things that I learned in there that I'm going to take into some other projects. So
Yeah.
that to me is like the musical
Yes.
absurdity part of it.
Sometimes when I do stuff like that, where I'll work on something that it's like a genre or a style that I'm not super familiar with,
Hmm.
and I'll make it, and then a few months will go by, and then you go back and listen to it, and you're like, man, how did I even do that? That's cool, you
Yeah.
know. So yeah,
Yeah, just doing it's an exercise, really, isn't it? Like there's part of
Hmm.
the sort of it's the time out and the discipline at the same time. You're not really trying to do something serious, or so you're
Yeah.
telling yourself, right?
right.
And then
You
you
end up
go in and you do a lot of like deep listening, and you figure out how are these sounds being made and how can I get to them, and then you just create something. Cryss, what a great, like, beautiful example that is, just of like creating something and using what you have, and just something that's fresh and different for
Yeah.
you. It's not grabbing a 6 wire, box, and it's not your thing. It's like what
Yeah.
is that? And what a great
It,
way for it to, you learn so much. Yeah.
yeah. I just wanted to say, when I say musical absurdity, that what I meant is it felt absurd for me to do it because that's not my world, and that was not a statement about dub music, because I think dub music is pretty awesome. I really enjoyed being introduced to it. So the absurdity in these kind of musical things is not that you try somebody else's style, because I mean those all these other styles are you know people love them, and they're totally valid, and they may not be yours, but the absurdity is in the fun of trying to do it.
I agree.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Sort of.
everything that you learned. Wow, that's what's so cool. And then all of a sudden that's some of that's going to ooze out and something that you're really trying to do, and even though that was just an exercise, like later it's going to be like, what'd be cool right here is like that repeating delay thing or whatever,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, exactly.
it comes out.
I like what Andy says here. Kitchen sound sample challenges are fun. Make music after you sample a bunch of junk, and I think that's again one of those like interesting ideas that takes you out of your normal pattern to think like maybe I'll make something that's sampled or that comes from a sound source that I'm not used to working with.
Yes.
That's like Peter Gabriel. That's what that reminds me of. When he's out there in the
Mm.
junkyard smashing stuff and gives this little microphone out there recording everything, and
Yeah.
take it back, put it in the Fairlight. That is fun stuff. And I don't do enough of that. I really don't. I really rely mostly on the instruments and create sounds on these. I don't do a lot of sampling. So maybe that is something I could try. And especially
Does
with sorry, go
yeah.
ahead.
I was just curious, does sound design lead you down new roads? Like, does like sitting and creating some sort of sound kind of inspire you to a new song?
It can um but what I try and do most of the time is I'm trying to match sounds. I'm trying to create or find sounds that really fit nice together. To where when you listen to it, you're like, that belongs like peanut butter and
Hmm.
jelly. That's it. That's supposed to go like that. So it can, and sometimes that'll be the inspiration for the start of a song as a patch or something or a sound that I've created, um, or just a. I was just gonna say like with the sampling stuff now with some of the stuff you can do with granular. I
Yeah.
mean, you can really mangle some of these samples up and make them way cool, and that can be really inspiring as well. So,
This is one of the reasons that I have a modular setup, because there's a lot of great modules that will mangle things and push you
Uh-huh.
into new territory. And then it's like, well, wow, that's kind of inspiring. How can I use that? Or what if I side chain that whole sound? Or like,
Hmm.
or what if I put it through an envelope and make it the drums instead of even a sample kick or something? Right now, all of a sudden, you're kind of going, wait, it's a pretty wide open thing. I could kind of do like whatever, right? Like, and then
Yeah.
you get
Yeah.
inspired. So yeah, Yeah, Marshall, I'd love to hear you incorporate that in some trance, like some sampling.
Yeah,
That'd be
I think that's
bad.
a good idea. That might be the solution to the current situation I'm in,
Hmm.
because it'll get me into
Mm,
doing something new.
mm.
Yeah.
It and I will probably use the quantum, which is fun, and a new, like, a technique or a style of sound design that I don't really do very often at all. So that might actually be a good solution for me for my current predicament. Because the problem I have is, like, these tracks are almost done. They're just missing little bits. I don't know what little bits to put, and every time I'm sitting here, I've sat here for hours, like, trying to figure something out for some of this stuff. And at the end of the night, and you're like, this, I just am not getting anywhere. So maybe that's a good way to proceed.
Yeah.
I think you need to do that and report back, on our next episode. Like, give it a shot and report. No, I'm serious. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
give it a go and then report back. I'd love to see, if that was successful or not and why. That would be really interesting.
Yeah. I agree. I agree.
Do it.
I will give it a shot,
Do it.
and report back.
And report back.
I got one other thing here. I was just thinking about something that used to more when I was younger, and I have to admit I don't do this as often now. And I think it would probably be more relevant to people that are more into like musical performance than like just straight programming stuff or modular. But I found one of the ways to kind of break out of a rut was to learn another person's song
Mm,
or their parts out of
mm,
a song. Now, I mean, I know growing up as a guitarist, I knew tons of people that were like slavishly dedicated to one guitar player. And I always thought it was stupid because, like, well, you need to have your own style. That one person should be part of your style, and you should collect together a number of influences and make it your own. And that's, I mean, like the guys that I grew up with, that's how they did it. It was like the late '60s British, rock guys that were creating, bands like Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and stuff like that, taking their blues influences, learning those, and kind of bringing them into a new art form. And then, of course, the '80s guys grew up on their music, and they started doing that, and on and on and on. And so, sitting down and learning something, because it forces you out of your own patterns, and literally out of your own patterns. Like if you're playing whatever it is, guitar, keys, drums, whatever, it forces you to learn somebody else's way, their voicings, their rhythm, that kind of thing. And if you pick something that's got some sort of technique in it, or that's got some harmonic changes that are really interesting, it can often be something that can be ported to your own music as an influence, not the copy, but as an influence to bring in. Have you guys done anything like that?
I do that so I don't do a lot of this anymore because it's almost impossible to put it out anywhere. But I do like going through and remixing songs,
Mm-hmm.
or
ah,
I should say, not just remixing, but almost like doing a cover. Like I did this with the Mortal Kombat theme song from the movie from the '90s,
Yeah.
and it turned out excellent. And it was so much fun to do that. It took like a month to do, but it turned out excellent. And it was a lot of fun. And going through and just learning that song, it's such an odd melody, you know what I mean, that they put in that, and it's really, it really did help. Not necessarily with a writer's block kind of thing. Well, I don't know, because you just learn how other songs are put together sometimes, and you're like, whoa,
Yeah.
they did this? That's crazy. I would have never thought of that. And then in the future, when you're working on stuff or trying to think of ideas, you remember some of those little tricks, and you might implement
Yeah.
some of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point. Like the dividends of it are not necessarily always immediate.
Yeah.
Sometimes there'll be just like a little pinch of it, and then they pay off later and later as
Later on.
you
Yep.
keep referring back to it.
We just gained that experience, right? Now I know that this weird kind of chord thing or this weird sequence of notes can sound cool.
Uh-huh.
And so I may, even though I'm not going to do the exact same thing, obviously, for one of my songs, but I'll remember that and I'll be like, what if I kind of tried a little bit of this in here? So, yeah, 100%.
That reminds me of that. It's mentioned in the chat. That was one of those things that did it for me. Like, that kind of thing.
Nice.
Those little licks that he does. I mean, it's been ages since I played that. I was trying to remember it. But that was one of those things that I had determined, man, I got to get that Bohemian Rhapsody solo. That was a really big song. And if you guys remember in the early 90s, since I was a little young for the first time it came around, but in the early 90s when Wayne's World came out, and that song just
Blew up again. Yeah, I
blew
remember
up.
that.
And
Yeah.
I was like, man, I gotta.
I remember that. That was how big it was. I was like 11 or something, and I remember that. That and the Pacer, that blue Pacer they drove around.
But your point, Chris, is like, that's the thing, is like just learning that made you do some things that you would not normally do. And you're just like getting it under your hands, and then getting it in your brain. And it's like making you think, oh, I would have never thought of that, and then just from transcribing it like that and getting it under your hands, now you've opened up some doors just from doing that. And I used to do that. Well, I still do to some extent all the time, though. I really used to do it early on. I would transcribe everything I could get my hands on, both on drums and on piano. So I'd be trying to learn everything. And just because it just makes you think differently. It's not what you wrote, it's what someone else wrote. And you go, oh, wow, that's completely a different mindset. And then you do enough of that, it starts to seep back out in your creative output in great ways.
Yeah.
So,
and sometimes having those skills can help you either not have as much writer's block, or it could help you overcome it in some ways as well.
Yeah, or even more to the point of the topic of our show, I guess that's one way to get out of it, is to just stop what you're doing and go listen to some other piece of music that you find interesting and literally teach yourself how to play it, like break it down and just do that and put yourself into neutral and learn somebody else's thing. And I bet, I bet that success rate is really high for when you come back and then it's like, I got to reset. I got the reset button,
Yeah, I think with the playing the games, with ourselves psychologically, I think that can really be a good thing. And part of that is self-imposed limits or goals with it. So sometimes we need, it was mentioned in the chat already, like time limits, like you need to do something and get it done in this amount of time. And that forces a certain creative behavior that out of the necessity of getting it done. But then, what was the other thing I was going to say?
You have writer's block. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
You go sit
Well, But the other thing too is to take, just like the games you can play, like you can set for yourself, like, oh, I'm going to go listen to this other piece of music or watch this movie or something. All right, now here's the game for me to help get me back into writing. I need to take two elements, whatever if they're, out of that piece of music and see how I can build something out of that is uniquely my own but inspired by those elements. So maybe it's who was it that was mentioned earlier? Was it Peter Gabriel or something that was
Yeah.
like, oh well, the using the samples. Okay, so now I'm gonna walk around with my recorder and sample something, and I'm gonna use that technique to build a song, or I'm gonna use this other technique to build a song in that way, and just kind of make that your goal. Like, and I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna do this thing, and that becomes, it almost takes a pressure off of everything else, because you're like, I've got to devote some brain power to do this thing that I've not done and to figure it out, that you kind of forget all your other like hang-ups.
It can, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
totally it. Redirecting your thought, really, yeah. And you're getting it off of trying to, pound and pound and pound this one idea that you're not coming up with. And so all of a sudden it's like, cool, I'll just like go and get some samples and see what I can do with those for a second. And then next thing you know, probably here you go. You got something worth goofing with. And that's the
And
trick. So, yeah.
Then I'll get my Grammy.
Finally. Finally, it's overdue. I know. I don't know. I
don't think they give Grammys for electronic music, do they?
I don't know. I've heard some great stuff out there. They should. I think. Frank Zappa's Jazz from Hell was all electronic music and samples mostly, but that won a Grammy.
Oh, it did. Okay.
That's the only
kind of rare, unless you're an act that draws in all the little kids.
Yeah,
you're probably not going to win.
I would assume like Dead Mouse has won a Grammy. I don't know that for a fact, but
I wonder.
You should look that up while we're chatting for the last little bit here. But yeah, I bet that's because he really does some great stuff, and he finds ways to. Hey, he did a master class. Have you guys seen these master classes that are?
Oh yeah, I watched his, and I watched.
Okay.
What's his name? Airman Van Buren. Yeah, it looks like Dead Mouse did win a Grammy in 2008.
There you go.
That was his first one, and he won a Grammy in 2012 as well.
Oh, nice.
So Wagyu says that's Kate Bush these days, Marshall.
Exactly. I mean, and that's cool. I always felt like electronic music is the coolest. It's the coolest kind of music, because you can do anything. And I always felt like it used to get me kind of really pissed off when people would sit there and tell me that it wasn't real music. And I still run into that on occasion. There's some people out there still that think unless you're playing drums and a guitar and a bass, it's not real music, or piano. If it's synths and it's drum machines, it doesn't count because the computer plays it all or whatever. That's what they think.
Right. That's what they think.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, there's a similar analog to that a lot of people, like growing up, got my Metallica T-shirt on. Like, oh, that's just noise. Like, and it would upset me. I like, like they would treat it as it's not really music. It doesn't take skill or stuff like. And I'd be like, no, that's punk rock. That's not metal. And then to think of sorry, I had to take a dig there. But
that's right though. That's right.
But so a song I was listening to today was "To Live Is to Die" off of "And Justice for All" from what year was that? 88 or something. And the song starts with classical guitar and ends with classical guitar. And metal is, very much like a neoclassical form of music. And I appreciate when people like that, and in all different genres, are willing to break some rules and do things that you shouldn't do, like play classical guitar in a metal song. I mean, now these days it's accepted, but you think at the time that James Hetfield did that was not really a thing, and that there's been a lot of musicians that were willing to break rules And perhaps a good lesson for us is like we assume too many rules for ourselves and impose too many limits on our own creativity because we think that's not what people of this genre do. I mean, so there's the point of I need to learn this genre in and out and learn what this kind of stuff is, like dub or whatever. But also, then you need to go, oh, wait, how can I just break this apart?
Totally. That's what a great observation, and that's so true. That's part of it is just being brave and seeing what strikes your fancy and recombining things.
Mm-hmm.
That's that listening thing too again, and just don't be afraid to like let some of that come through. It's still going to be through your prism, so it won't sound exactly like Metallica. Even if Cryss, if you were to write a Metallica like song, it's still going to have parts of you in it, right? And then and you're being willing to open up to different things and recombine things, and like for instance, something that's really heavy and then putting classical guitar on it, nylon string guitar, while the rest of it is Marshalls on 11. So that's really
I'm on
important.
11.
Yeah, well, of course you are. You go to 11. You're always on 11, dude. Come on. You live in that world.
I do.
That's what you do, man. It is.
Full blast, high tempo, lots of energy.
Yep.
Melt your face off. That's what I like.
Yeah, that's what got you excited to begin with, right?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Totally.
Well, and you remember there was a lot of this done in like the late 80s, and maybe even earlier than that, especially like, I mean, remember those collaboration band stuff where like rap and metal guys started doing stuff together? I mean, I don't know if there was anybody before, like Run DMC and Aerosmith did their thing, and then it was,
I think that was
it?
the
Like
first like main hit of the kind of cross genre type stuff was that Aerosmith Run DMC.
Totally, yeah.
I can't remember what some of the other ones were, but it was like Ice-T and Anthrax or something like that. It was some pretty crazy mashups. Yeah.
Synthetics is saying body count.
It's kind of like that because I went to Family Values '99 and they had, that was a pretty awesome concert, and it was all rock groups except Ice Cube was there too. So there was this whole section where Ice Cube came out and did his thing, and it was interesting because I was like, why is Ice Cube here?
Well, how was he received in that?
He did awesome. It was really great. It didn't necessarily make me like a huge Ice Cube fan, but it worked well in the show, and they did a great job. That was an epic concert, that Family Values tour '99. It was a lot of fun.
Very cool. I think like we've discovered like so many ways to like fight writer's block and how we've gotten there and like how to get around it. It's been I think a broad and rather difficult topic to tackle because it's nebulous, right? Like it's very abstract, as we've said. So what a great conversation. I don't know if we're done or not, but this has just really been inspiring to me. Like I'm literally inspired from talking to you guys and the people in the chat, and just like, this is helpful to me next time I feel like I'm getting into a rut. I actually even have some like now cemented sort of ways of like trying to break through it. So what a fun show.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
No, and hopefully it helps some folks. Hopefully it helps me. So I'll report back next week and see if I've broken through my log jam. I will try some things that we talked about on the show for sure. So
yeah, awesome. Same here. I will definitely be employing some of these strategies because it's coming. It's around the bend all the time. It's coming for you.
It happens to everyone eventually.
It does. Well, I guess I'll use this opportunity to wrap us up, huh?
Sure.
It's great chatting with you guys and chatting with everyone in the chat room and all the chats that have been chatting everywhere and the chatness that's happened. But thanks everyone for tuning in, and I want you guys to remember that we have a Facebook group Thru Port Collective. I'd love it
Look,
if
I
you
was
guys
ready.
you were like Johnny on it. Yeah, I'd love we'd love it if you guys check it out and join. It is a private group, but that's just so we can kind of keep things a little more from getting out of control and have a little more of a quality about it. So please don't be off put by that. It's just the way we're doing it for now.
We've got
And
26 members, so we're kind of a big deal.
yeah, we're getting to be a big deal. And I think we have 55-ish subscribers on YouTube. So let me honk that one too and say, come see our YouTube channel, and check it out. We're going to be putting more content up as we go along, but we're just getting started. And I think we're getting a fun groove together and figuring out kind of the chemistry of the three of us and finding out who our audience is. And we really appreciate you checking it out. So definitely come and subscribe and like and comment. We love the comments because, we're just kind of doing our thing right now. But if you have specific things you'd like to hear about, specific topics, or just within a topic, if you have a question, please give push out some comments and questions. We want to know those things. That's why we're doing it, and we're doing it for the fun of it. We're not trying to be the biggest show on the internet here that does synth talk or whatever. We're trying to cover way more ground anyway, and just talk more about production and recording and creation and writing and synthesizers, of course, but we have guitar and we have drums. We have lots of stuff we can cover. So if you're digging what we're doing, please let us know. We would appreciate it.
Yeah,
and
hit that like button.
Hit that like button.
Right.
Comment
so over this.
Subscribe.
Subscribe.
Are we throwing gang signs or what?
Is that the gang sign there?
It is. Yeah, that's for Mount Juliet. Yeah.
You guys are really taking this rap metal seriously, aren't you?
Yeah.
Oh my God. All right. Cryss, thank you. Marshall, thank you. Everyone
Tim,
in the
thank
chat
you.
room. Yeah, thank you. And we will see you in 1 week, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern, and that is 6 p.m. on the West Coast. So please join us again when we cover a topic that we haven't even discussed yet.
It'll be good though.
It'll be good though. It'll be riveting. It'll be just like this, which like we'll cover it. We'll hit it.
I don't know if anything's going to top the alien baby train.
Yeah. And with that, good night.
That's right. So long, everyone.